In the first reading from Exodus, chapter 32, verse 7 to 14, the classic picture of God's wrath, jealous God, classic image of the people of Israel, forgetting who was the one who liberated them from the hand of Pharaoh and the slavery in Egypt. A classic image of Moses interceding between God and the people. So we recall some of the words here. The Lord said to Moses, "Stiff-necked people this are." And earlier the observation, they now have this calf that they're worshiping, saying, "This is your God who freed you from Israel." So we could easily get caught up, as many has, in this caricature image of God, the jealous God of wrath, and miss the whole point of why God is being portrayed as a jealous and wrathful God. Perhaps for that we have to go into our own phenomenological experience of when you've seen yourself jealous and full of wrath. And don't act like you never have. So, outwardly, there's the anger, there's but that's coming out of what? Jealousy, right? Jealousy and wrath. But jealousy is coming out of what? You have to go deeper.
Pride.
But there's no pride in God. So wrath, jealousy, go deeper.
Mistrust?
No. Wanting something that you can't get.
Let me back up then. What will you define wrath as? As an emotion? Jealousy? Emotions? Okay. So let's keep going with the track of emotions. Outwardly, wrath. Inside, jealousy. Go deeper. What will be the emotions that has led anyone, in this case God, but in your own experience, to be jealous and to then be wrathful and angry?
Betrayal?
We're getting closer, yeah. So, wrath, anger, jealousy, deeper, hurt. A lover that's being hurt. A lover who's jealous. And because he's jealous and see the other one being unfaithful, betraying, not loving to the same extent that the lover is loving, anger. But anger is because of jealousy. Jealousy is because of a lover that's being hurt. So we may stay at the caricature level of the God of the Old Testament as a jealous, wrathful God, and miss the point that he is jealous and a wrathful God because he's a lover. A lover who's freed his bride from slavery and made her his own. A lover who's made a covenant. Marriage is a covenant of love. God who's made a covenant of love, a pact, a marriage with the people of Israel. Israel is his bride. And when Israel goes to other gods, the lover is hurt because he's jealous. He wants her for himself alone. And if it's a covenant that they both freely enter into, I will be your God, you will be my people. I will be your Lord, you will be my servant. I will be your husband, you will be my bride. I am your lover. You are mine. And the whole Old Testament seen from that light. Classic example would be the prophet of Hosea, who speaks of God in his own angst of having a wife that is an adulterous wife and the hurt of a lover. But if we go even deeper to the message here, we often miss the mere detail that what's being described is not just God who is the lover who gets hurt when we betray him with other lovers, but a God who feels. Think about that. God feels. God has emotions. Wrath, jealousy, hurt. Makes sense. If we're created in the image and likeness of God and you have emotions, it's because you reflect the image of who God is. God who feels. And if there was any doubt in the fullness of time, God sent his Son to reveal us who God is. And surely Jesus had emotions. One could argue not because he's fully human, but because he's fully divine, he feels. Now, also in the readings, you hear what's the remedy for a lover who's been hurt. In this case, Moses, a figure who represents the bride, who's still being faithful, who still is there face to face with the Lord, even though the rest may not, at least one is. And him who speaks but is an instrument for the Father to be consoled in his sorrow and his feeling of being betrayed, the lover who's hurt. And how does Moses go about consoling the heart of God? Remember. And in two different ways, he's prompting God to remember. The first one, he says, remember your servant Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. Who are they? Servants like Moses, who are faithful, who have not betrayed, who love him and respond with love to the lover. Remember us, maybe few, but at least there are some who are faithful servants who love you. Remember those you love. And then the second one is, he says, remember your the promise you made, the covenant. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and all the land that I promised, I will give your descendants the perpetual heritage. Remember your servants. Remember the covenant. How does that translate to us? We are created in his image and likeness. So here we also have a response to us. One, examining our lives, our hearts, our mind in this Lenten journey. How may I be offending God? How may I be falling in the trap of worshiping other gods? And the ultimate lover with whom I've entered into marriage, the God who loves me, may be hurt by my actions, hurt, jealous, wrath. But focus on the love. The wrath will give you fear. The love will inspire you to change. Another point to pray about is, well, maybe I don't feel the love of God. Maybe I've grown typical, maybe slothful, maybe I don't have that fire anymore. Now, the scriptures are giving you a remedy. What will be the remedy? Remember. Remember your servants. In your cases, remember the many ways that God has loved you. For that reason, in the Ignatius spirituality, repetition is such an important principle. To repeat the places where you felt the presence of God, the graces of God, the love of God. So one way to rekindle your love for God is remember. Remember the many ways He has loved you. And in the responsorial song, it says, they forgot the God who saved them, who done great deeds in Egypt, wondrous deeds in the land of Ham, terrible things at the Red Sea. The antidote for forgetting and falling tepid and cold in love for God is remember. Remember the great deeds, the wondrous deeds, the terrible things that God has done out of love for you. Remember. And then the second part, remember your covenant. Remember your marriage. This can also be helpful for couples who may be feeling a little cold, no longer the love for one another. Remember that wedding day. Remember the covenant you made to each other. Remember how you were just so romantically in love. Remember when as a spouse you saw the bride coming in for the first time, dressed in white and radiant in beauty. Remember how was that day you proposed. Remember how you said yes. Remember that first night of love. Remember how you gave yourself completely to each other and vowed forever to be in love. Remember that covenant. And just like it will reunite and rekindle the love among spouses, so too remember the love that God has for you and the love you have for Him. And when you made that vow, or perhaps that night when you had that first experience in powerful way of God loving you and you had no doubt that God exists, that He loves me, remember that. And when you do, how with mighty power He's conquered you in love, then you rekindle that love. But let's make it even more concrete. Well, how do I renew that love in a way that may be concrete, tangible? The sacrament of the Holy Eucharist. Just as spouses may renew their love in nuptial ways, no longer two but one, what do you think is given to us here? The lover. Yes, jealous and wrathful because he's a lover that often gets hurt. A lover who desires nothing more but to love you and to be loved by you. And in His love has given us a means to enter in oneness of love with Him, with His body, blood, soul, and divinity in holy communion, no longer two or many, but one in divine love. I've been reading for my studies from this great Swiss theologian, Hans Ur von Balthasar, classic little book titled Love Alone is Credible. And I'll quote you in the spirit of today's gospel and today's homily. This is from his 8th chapter, Love is a Deed. He starts this chapter by this simple line. Love desires no recompense other than to be loved in return. And thus, God desires in return for His love for us nothing other